Hi, welcome to today's show. I'm Ivory, and the topic today is signs of spiritual growth. Before I get started with that, I want to send a special hello to my listeners in Canoga Park, California. I just love seeing you show up week after week, and so thank you for your support. Let's dive into this. I've got a lot of to talk to you about today. I want to start, first of all, by kind of defining what spiritual growth is. So it is the process of awakening to your true nature, your purpose, your potential in life. When you undergo spiritual growth, you are experiencing an expansion in your awareness, your insight, which is also known as higher consciousness. All spiritual growth has one objective, and that is to help you embody your soul or higher self. Once you are able to shift from ego to soul, there is the potential for you to experience what is understood as spiritual enlightenment. You probably have heard of that. Self-realization, heaven, oneness, in varying degrees. It can be different for different people. I want to talk a little bit first about what some signs you can look for to know that you are making progress. And then I'm going to go back to some stages on that progress. So let's talk about 12 signs that you are growing and evolving spiritually. One is you embrace challenges as lessons and opportunities. And boy, that's a big one. I feel like I talk about that every day in sessions, like something terrible happens to a person. It's a disappointment, something that upsets them. And then my first thing is I want you to spend some time thinking about the lesson learned from this. Why do you think this happened? What did you gain from it? Because once you step into that type of approach to it, then you're stepping out of the ego, you're stepping out of your personal feelings and looking at what's in it for your soul, what's in it for your higher self. Whether your car broke down or someone you love has become terribly ill, you sense that there's an underlying lesson and opportunity in that obstacle. Instead of feeling like a victim, you feel like a student of life, which you are. We all are. In other words, you see that life is not happening to you, it's happening for you. So it's all like I call life an immersive, the ultimate immersive learning experience. Number two, another sign of growth. You see through the seduction of the material world. I'm sure you've heard about how spirituality is a lot about stepping out of ego, stepping out of the third dimension. The third dimension is all about materiality and carnal pursuits, pleasures of the flesh, possessions, all of those things. So there's, it's okay if you want those, but just realize once upon a time, you might have loved buying expensive things. You might have loved shopping, focusing on enhancing your social status, and earning more money might have been a really big goal for you, or even indulging in spiritual materialism. But now you're understanding that the material world doesn't ultimately bring you the deep happiness you seek. How many people do we see? So many who are billionaires, millionaires, and they still can't find lasting love. They still don't seem to like themselves. They still don't seem to have true friends. They seem miserable. Money can buy you things, but it can't buy you the most important things. So you start seeing through that and detaching further from the desire to make that a center part of your life. The third one is your sensitivity has heightened. In the past, you very possibly may have been living in a rather numb state where you're sort of disconnected from your body, your heart, your mind, and even your soul. But now you're a great deal more aware of what's going on both inside you and around you. And as such, you might experience more empathic suffering, which can often feel like both a curse and a gift. I was born with that. I felt other people's pain my whole life. So I have great empathy for empaths, but you can become somewhat of an empath yourself through raising your frequency, through becoming more spiritual, because you're pulling out of focusing on yourself and you're focusing more on other people. And it's actually a change within you as well. Almost like a barometer within you becomes much more sensitive. The fourth one is you feel more love and compassion for yourself, for others, and even the whole world as in general. That's part of that heightened sensitivity. You also feel more connected to yourself and the world. You may feel higher levels of compassion and true empathy for others, even those who are harmful to themselves, others, and the planet. I know for me, like part of that has been, I can't feel hatred anymore. I can't. I've tried to like see if it's in there somewhere about anybody or anything, and I don't have it. I have sadness, I have concern, I have compassion, but I cannot find the hatred anymore. And I'm very grateful for that. So if you find yourself feeling less angry and not really being able to like connect with that hatred emotion again, but suddenly you realize like you feel this compassion for the whole human race, that's a major sign of your spiritual growth. That takes coming to a new dimension in your being. Your open heart, which is what's happening here, your heart is expanding, it's opening. It's going to bring you more joy, but also more pain. You cannot have a great open heart and not feel pain. And yet your heart, through your growth, is slowly learning how to expand and hold that pain and not torture you with it. Number 5, you stop seeing life in black and white dualistic thinking. If you've ever been taught anything by your spiritual awakening, your Kundalini awakening, or a dark night of the soul, it's that there's so much more to life than meets the eye. Something that may seem negative may turn out to be positive. I was just talking about this yesterday with a client. Like there's the realizing you dodged a bullet, and then there's getting something that you realize you really shouldn't have had. So both sides of that. Something that seems beautiful could actually be ugly deep down, and you don't see it at first. But everything and everyone have two sides that are interdependent. Nothing and no one is totally black or white. So when you start seeing the gray areas, options for yourself and others, I find myself being present for conversations, and I'm drawn into them, and I'll say, hey, what about the thousands of options between that extreme and this extreme? And they're like, what do you mean? And I'm like, well, what about this or this or this? And just to get them thinking, because it doesn't need to be so extreme. Nothing needs to be so extreme. So if you're thinking along those terms, whether it's in your head, out loud, with other people, that's a great sign of your growth. Number 6, you find that you can show more understanding toward difficult people. And it's because you start to see underneath the surface of that person's behavior, the various wounds and trauma that may cause them to act that way. You no longer carry such anger and resentment as you once did. You find it easier to show tolerance and understanding toward others. You're no longer reacting with so much judgment, condemnation, or self-righteousness. You know that you're not perfect, and you realize you've been through trauma and you have your wounds, and you just start accepting people as they are. It doesn't mean, if they're really abrasive to you, it doesn't mean you force yourself to spend a lot of time around them, but it means the time that you are around them becomes a little easier because that's how they are. And you know you're not going to be able to change them. It's hard enough to change yourself, right? So finding that place of acceptance just really eases, like you have so much less drama and trauma within you and in your life. And if you're realizing that about yourself, that's another fantastic sign. Number 7 is you see that life is cyclical. It's like a spiral. Instead of getting stuck in one mode or mindset or way of being, you're beginning to see that cyclical nature of life. There are good times and there are bad times. And after spring comes autumn, and after day comes night. All things are destined to come and go, rise and fall. As such, you don't get as affected as you once did when life waxes and wanes. It's just part of life and the journey of ensoulment. And I think there's a couple of examples of this. Years ago, I'm not saying, oh, I'm so wonderful on my spiritual journey, but I've been on this journey very heavily since 82. And considering I was born seeing spirit, seeing, hearing angels, like I can't help but have benefited from their guidance very strongly through my life. But in 82 is when I really started my spiritual journey intensely. And it didn't take me very long to see. I was still in my 20s then, and I could see that when things are wonderful, we need to really embrace it. When the family's healthy, when people are in a good place, when people got their jobs going and the family's good, embrace that, because the nature of life is things are going to go wrong. Things are going to happen. There's going to be drama. There's going to be some trauma. And so it's not waiting for the other shoe to drop, because there's no point ruining the wonderful times waiting for something negative to happen. But just realizing that it can't be wonderful all the time. That's not realistic. That's not how life is, but it's just expecting it. And along with that would be also understanding and seeing that death is every bit as much a part of the natural cycle of life as birth is. And so it's not a thing to be feared or not talked about, kind of put away in a closet like it's some secret. It's part of life, and you start to accept that more. And with that, your fear of dying, of death, drops away, because you realize it's just a natural part of life. It's okay. It's just going back home and going back into spirit form. And I'm going to tell you, every spirit that's ever come through who was in bad health or crippled, could not walk, in a wheelchair, they're all just thrilled to leave that shell behind, go to the other side, and be able to run and jump and be active and feel young and out of pain. So when you come to that realization that that's what's waiting for you, then you have nothing to fear. It's not about living life because you're afraid you're going to miss out on something. You'll have opportunities. There'll be plenty of opportunities. But it is just seeing that there is a cycle to everything and accepting it and sort of going with the flow, which is good. Why would you want to fight against the current? Number 8, you become less attached to mental stories. And let me talk about this a little. So let's say you've been devoting months, years, or even decades of your life to your spiritual practice, which is just what you do every day to work on your spiritual journey. Unlike physically tangible pursuits, there's no easy way to know if you're making progress or not when it comes to your inner spiritual life, which is why I'm doing this show today. But if you're wondering whether you're actually growing and evolving, and whether spiritual growth is indeed occurring in your life, well, I think that this is really important, because you are paying more attention to your experience rather than the things that have been told to you. I think I have a duplicate here. No wonder there were so many pages to my printout. I'm like, can I really have 11 pages to talk about? That seems excessive. I'm glad it was. All right. Let me go here, sorry. So the next one, number 9, you find it easier to slow down and do nothing. Not a bad thing. Our thinking minds, especially in the modern world, are always telling us, you got to do something. What are you doing? Why aren't you doing something? You need to achieve, go, 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 fast, fast paced. But our soul, which is the spiritual center of our entire being, finds true nourishment in slowing down and enjoying life as it is. If you're finding it easier to wind down, to relax, or at least catch the desire within you to not constantly be switched on, if you're able to change course when you realize you're pushing too much, that is a clear sign of spiritual growth. It's taking care of yourself. It's nurturing your spiritual self and your physical self. Number 10, you are more interested in letting go of the old than gaining the new. As an ongoing student of the Tao Te Ching, an ancient wisdom text from the Taoist tradition, the topic of letting go arises constantly And I'm going to tell you, like back in 82, I just like flashed into my head. I was working at a psychiatric hospital a little later, 92. I was working at a psychiatric hospital, and a friend there gave me this printout that was called Letting Go. And it hit me so profoundly at the time. I taped it to my kitchen, like on a cupboard, so I'd see it all the time. And I think I still have that in my spirituality file, because it was something I really needed at the time. Like that was a lesson I'd been looking for. And since then, I've continued to let go. There's this huge part of your authentic spiritual growth that is about the capacity to want to let it go instead of gaining more. You just want to let go things that no longer serve you. The desire to accumulate even knowledge is from the ego, but the desire to surrender and be free comes from your soul. So think about this. Along with that, I think comes when you feel this burning desire to downsize. It doesn't have to be downsizing your home. It can be downsizing your possessions. My parents set such a great example for this when they moved a lot, and they had to move. They were moving to take care of different family members who were very ill and dying, and they moved out of state. And so when they were getting ready to do that, the first time when we moved from Maryland to Arizona, we did not take very much. I think I had one box I could put my things in. So that was my first lesson. But then I watched my parents when they were packing to leave to go to Alabama, take care of my aunt and then my grandmother. And they got rid of so much. And they told us, it feels so free to just let go of a lot of that. And it really struck home with me. And so I'd say 2007, I had a move, and I was moving to a much smaller home, and I got rid of carloads of things. And honestly, I haven't stopped. I constantly am gathering up things. I haven't used this. If I can give it to somebody I know, I give it. If I can donate it locally, I donate it. I just always want to get rid of things, because every time I do, and I'm sure you've noticed this, like there's a lightening in your energy. You feel the difference. Like even if the decluttering is in a place you don't see, like a closed closet you rarely open, your being, your spiritual self, your frequency, your energy knows that there's been a reduction in clutter, and you're going to feel freer. You're going to feel lighter. So every time I drop a load off at the donation center, I kind of rotate between several. It's like, they're always like, do you want a receipt for this? I'm like, no, the joy is giving this to you. So just pay attention to these kind of things, whether it's letting go of old ideas that no longer suit you, that you know don't work for you anymore, or actual items, belongings. Number 11 is you have more capacity to be discerning. That's always a good one for anybody. Spiritual growth is so much more than experiencing love, bliss, and expansion, but that is part of, as you deepen and mature on your journey, spiritual growth is also very much about the capacity to think clearly for yourself, to distinguish truth from falsehood for yourself. This ability to use the mind like a sword is what is known as spiritual discernment. People will even sometimes walk away from belief systems where they used to think about a particular religion, but it's how they were raised, and then they realize that's not the one for me. I want to do something else, or I want to totally go with spiritual path. It can show up in a lot of different ways. Number 12, you can access more moments of ordinary magic. And so while it's normal at the beginning of your spiritual journey to want glitz, glamour, exciting, sparkly experiences, the more you grow, the more you recognize the beauty of what you have right here, right now. That feeling of gratitude for what you have in your life already. And that's ordinary magic, can be accessed whenever you allow yourself to be present in the moment, grounded in the now, and connected with the heart and soul. So I think that if you recognize yourself in any of those uh, examples, then you're doing a great job. We're going to jump into now some stages that you're going to go through as you attain this. All righty, let's jump into this next section here. I'm going to talk about these 7 stages that you're going to pass through as you are achieving these different levels, showing you that you're making progress on your spiritual journey. So these are sort of points that you can look for and look back on, depending on where you are. The first step is innocence. And we're born into a material world where life is dominated by your lower 3 chakras. You enter this world in a state of innocence. And as long as you're healthy and you have a loving family, you live in a world of joy and bliss. You still have a strong connection to the divine, and your consciousness is just emerged. So the spiritual being is still very much awake in this stage, but for most, the memory begins to fade as to what you were taught by your angels, what life was like in the afterlife, knowledge from past lives, because you're taught to fit in by people as you become more distracted by the world around you. There are a few who manage to maintain that divine connection, and they enjoy that kind of leg up on spirituality, the people who remember their spiritual beings from a very young age, who seem to be these little gurus. Have you met any of those children? They're astounding. They're like 70-year-old gurus in a 7-year-old's body. They might have past life memories, and they hear angels, see angels. They have spiritual gifts really strong. Let's talk about stage 2. So the next stage that happens in life is fear and ego. So as you grow, the ego emerges, and soon you realize you're completely at the mercy of those around you. That pure love you experienced up until this point begins to be overshadowed by fear and any corresponding emotions. You find that in order to get what you want, you need to please those in charge. You develop your personality and begin creating all the stories that will shape and define your life. So you're becoming your own person. Stage 3 is power. In your desire to overcome fear, you create success in your life. You become educated, start your careers and family. You want to have control to eliminate fear, so you accumulate things to give you a sense of security. And right here is where you have a turning point, a choice to make. So the first choice that you make, for some people, further growth and spiritual development ends right here at stage 3, the power stage. They may continue to be consumed with material desires, seeking more and more power and control. We see plenty of that in the world today. Those people are stuck low at stage 3. Life becomes very self-centered, and you remain there at stage 3. But for others who make a different choice, there's a feeling that there's more to life. That feeling begins to grow in you and get stronger and stronger. There has to be more to life than this. More to life than getting up in the morning, going to work, making money, coming home, taking care of the house, going to bed, do it again. Rather than just accumulating possessions and power, these people begin to look for a deeper meaning to life. They start to awaken spiritually, and they continue to stage 4. Stage 4 is about giving. And at that stage, you ask yourself, how can I help others? A lot of people come to me first when they're hitting this stage and they've been working in a corporate world, and they're like, I don't want to do this anymore. I want to help people. I want to do something in the spiritual world. I want to be a healer. I want to be a coach. There's many things but they're waking up that they want to step off that treadmill. How can you serve the world around you? You become comfortable with giving as well as receiving. But giving can also create a sense of power. And at this stage, giving can often still be ego-driven. So you're giving because you want to get something, or you are getting something, whether it's adulation, thanks, gratitude, not just because you want to give. You give because you expect some form of recognition or because it makes you feel good about yourself. So here's where you have a second choice. You can continue to give from that place of ego, always expecting something in return for what you give. But this obviously can have a lot of merit, and you can do many good things in the world. However, it leaves a constriction with your full spiritual growth. So the opportunity of the second choice is that you begin to give the level of love and compassion without any concern for recognition or reward. You give anonymously. You give with a stipulation that nobody knows who did this. Your giving becomes selfless and your true spiritual journey begins. That is a huge point. Stage 5 is the seeker. Now you begin your regular spiritual practices. So you're consciously doing things every day to further your spiritual growth. That longing for enlightenment, for knowledge grows within you. And now the decisions you make come mostly from the 4th chakra, the heart center, right in your heart. You begin to look for the deeper meaning of things. You try to understand why you are here and how you can make life more meaningful. You might study with teachers. You read books and practice techniques, go to classes and workshops. You have glimpses of the goal that encourages you to remain on your spiritual path. The throat chakra, right here, opens as you express the qualities of the heart in your life. So how this looks is somebody saying, I know I have a life purpose. I don't know what it is yet, but I suspect it's about healing, or I really want to help people. So that's that stage. And so don't be frustrated if you're at that stage and haven't figured out what you're doing yet, because you're just at stage 5. So you're moving towards stage 6, which is the sage. Cosmic consciousness dawns within you. Your mind fully awakens. You become a witness of your own actions and realize you're the role player in the multitude of roles you play. The fear of death dissolves as you realize that life is just another role. Simple yogic powers can become available to you, but there's still a separation between the giver and the recipient. And oh yes, here's where the third choice for you comes in. You've now reached this other critical junction on your journey. Your mind is fully awake, but some ego is still present. The choice or mistake here is to believe that you are something special. Believing your own PR, you mistakenly think you have reached the goal and may promote yourself as such. The end is in sight, but you've allowed the ego to hide it from view, and you remain stuck in a false sense of spiritual attainment. Or the alternative choice here is to recognize your ego, but don't succumb to it, to allow it to find its place harmoniously within the whole of you. You continue your journey with humility and devotion. Giving is done purely for the sake of giving. What's in it for me becomes, how can I serve? Insight and spiritual inspiration begin to grow within you. You hear the voice of your inner self, your higher self, and your angels as that 6th chakra opens. Stage 7 is spirit. Your heart now fully awakens. You are able to experience divine and unity consciousness. There is no longer any separation. No giver, given, or giving. No sense of I or me, just an awareness of oneness. You still live in the world, but are no longer of the world. Your spiritual practice is pure joy. All your chakras are open. Spiritual energy flows freely. When you reach the 7th stage, there are no longer choices. You've done your journey. You're in the optimal place to be. You function totally in harmony with nature. Everything is provided exactly as needed at exactly the right moment. You are the totality. And I notice, oh my goodness, I feel angels coming in so powerfully right now. I was just going to tell you, for me, coming to that place was really realizing that all my needs will be met, that my angels and God are never going to drop the ball on me. They brought me to this point. I'm helping people in the way that I was brought up to, not, I don't mean how I was raised by my parents, but my spiritual journey brought me to this place to help people. I'm doing what my angels want me to do. And so now, honestly, I find it really hard to like a us or them mentality. There's no enemies to me. There's just other people, and we're all one. And I feel that way about people all around the planet. I don't know any other way to feel about it. And if you are also at that seventh stage and you are feeling that oneness, don't be upset at people who don't understand that. They're just not at that stage, and maybe they won't be in this lifetime. We can never hold it against somebody when they don't have the understanding. They haven't reached a place that you understand. And it's never about being better than somebody or somebody being worse. That would be actually against this whole point. It's just where you're at. And everyone's at a different place on their soul journey, and it's okay. So keep in mind that these things I mentioned are not exhausted. There's other signs, and you don't have to check every box on that. All those things I told you, the 12 things that show you're making progress. If you don't have all of them, that doesn't mean you're not making progress. Any of those that you can check off, you're making progress. So congratulations. Recognizing yourself in even just one of those points signifies you are indeed experiencing transformation instead of stagnation. So I hope that this information is helpful for you and that you feel a little better about yourself. You can see the growth you're making, and it encourages you to continue on your journey. And I'm just so happy. If you have any questions, I'm always open to answer them. You can contact me via email or leave a comment on YouTube, however you're enjoying the show. Tune in next week. The topic is Benny Landrum, and he is a wonderful guy who's also an angel person. He has some really interesting experiences. It kind of came on him very suddenly about 6 years ago, and it's been kapow. And I told him I thought my audience would love hearing about this, so don't miss that one. In the meantime, may your angels surround you. May your angels protect you every moment, every day of your life. I'll see you next week.